idea that we can do it in one is ridiculous. We didn't get into this mess in 1 year. We're not going to be able to get out of it. The $5 trillion in deficit reductions over 5 years, what I pledged is every single year we will spend less money than the year before. So we're not talking about baseline budgeting here. We're talking about actually reducing and shrinking the size of government over 5 years. In so doing, we can get to a balanced budget. We'll take on the tough, intractable problems that we have to deal with in Washington. And it's not the defense budget. And frankly, as I mentioned before when I was talking about the size of government, the defense budget was 60% of the budget when I was born. It's now 17%. To suggest that the defense budget is the problem in this country means that you probably need to go back to school and study math a little bit more. Because it's obviously not where the growth of government has been. When I was born, entitlement spending was less than 10% of the budget. It's now 60%. And it's growing faster and faster. It's going to consume the budget. And one of those entitlements are student loans. And that's an entitlement. So we've created all of these government programs with the object of that the federal government should help you. Again, remember I talked about the more money that's sent to Washington, the harder it is for families, the less money that they have to contribute to nonprofit and charitable organizations or volunteer time. It's not just money. Everybody looks at money. Well, how much money are you giving? How much time can you give? Volunteer organizations are driven more on volunteer time than they are on volunteer money. And again, we have families so stretched and so stressed that these volunteer organizations are having a hard time finding people to do the things that are necessary to care for the folks at the local community. And here we have a government that says, don't worry about it. You give us the money, we'll take care of everything. But you eliminate all of this richness of society in the process. That's the real problem here. And so, is it automatic that if you reduce government, these things will grow? No, it's not automatic. And one of the things a leader needs to do is remind us who we are. And talk about the importance that, yes, if we're going to reduce your taxes, and we're going to do that. And we're going to reduce the size of government, and we remind everybody that freedom is not an easier thing in some respects. It's easier that you have the opportunity to do the things you want, but it's also harder in the fact that you have to do the things that you ought to do. If government is going to get smaller, then people have to get bigger. And that means they have to stretch out more. They have to do more things. But how beautiful is that? How beautiful is that you have to do more This is what we've always done. We need to remind ourselves that this is what we must be. It's not just, and I have a lot of folks in our party that say, cut government, cut taxes, everybody will be fine. As they go off to the Hamptons for the summer. No. Go to the Lower East Side for the summer. Help out those in need in our society. Take the gift that God has given you and plow it back in. Not to the government anymore, but to your neighbors and your community. This is the gift that America has given the world. This was the model that we were for the world. And it must be again. Yes.
Senator, it was quite disturbing when I heard the story being told about your wife, Karen, when Bella was born, and what the doctor said to her, that she needed to be ready to let go. Do you see that Obamacare is not only going to be forcing us to fund abortions, but also euthanasia? And if so, what will you do about it when you're elected president?
Well, you heard Sarah Palin get lambasted for using this term death panels. And she pointed out this one organization that had to do with end-of-life decisions. But I think the broader argument that she was making, and I think it was a correct broader argument, is socialized medicine in general, where government is now the provider, ultimately the provider of services, allocator of resources. That you become in a private sector, you are in a private sector healthcare system. When you go into the doctor, you go into the hospital, and you have a private sector system where you're paying for those benefits, you're paying for the care. You are a consumer, and from the standpoint of the doctor, you are a profit center. Some people have a problem with that. I do not. I want the doctor to see me as someone who is a customer, who that they need to treat well in order to give back. They need to provide the best quality of care at the best price in order for me to remain a customer. I want my auto mechanic to feel the same way. I want everybody in society to treat me as a consumer, and that they have to compete for my resources. But when doctors become wards of the state, and the pressure is on doctors, as it is in this bill, there are penalties to doctors who overutilize. There are penalties that if you are in the top 10% of costs that you drive as a doctor, you get hit. You get sanctioned. You get reimbursements cut. So what does that mean? Well then, instead of that person walking in as a customer, someone that they have to earn their trust, you are now a cost. You are now something that they have to control. And the government is forcing their agents to do that. They're rewarding them for doing it. Well, let's take a child who is high cost.